views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Darren Jaime, and today we're going to update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up on today's show, we'll give you an update on what's going on right here in the Bronx, including a federal judge blocks part of President Trump's executive order on sanctuary cities. We'll bring you the latest. Also, did former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn break the law by failing to inform the government about accepting money from Russian organizations? We'll find out more from our political commentator in studio. Then after that, we'll talk about Governor Andrew Cuomo's free tuition plan and exactly what does it truly mean for students in New York State. And then we'll find out about a conference providing information that will help Alzheimer's caregivers. And also, we'll hear about another organization dedicated to helping children in poverty or low-income areas become more successful. And then lastly, we'll find out what's in store for this year's Bronx Book Fair. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open. I'm Darren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, April 26th. And yes, you are watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We want to encourage you to stay connected to us, and you can find out more about us on Twitter at BronxNet TV and Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. We're starting things up with some local updates around the city. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced a new expansion of New York City's universal pre-K. The new plan is called 3K, and it'll offer free full-day pre-K for 3-year-olds regardless of a family's income. The city is gearing towards a program in the fall of 2017 with plans to serve 11,000 children. The mayor also has plans to expand the number of seats in the city's poorest school district, District 7 in the South Bronx, as well as District 23 in Brownsville by 2018. The city expects to spend $36 million on the pilot program and $177 million by the fiscal year once the program becomes citywide. And by 2020, the city plans to expand 3K for all at least 6 additional schools with a total of 8 districts. Well, Mayor Bill de Blasio is also making news with another headline. He made another announcement, but this time it's about helping students cool down in the classrooms. The mayor announced that the city will drop $28.7 million to install new air conditioning in all city schools by the year 2022. Currently, 11,000 schools across New York City don't have air conditioning, but starting this summer, 2,000 schools will be receiving air conditioners. Now, funding for the air conditioners will grow to $500,000 throughout the fiscal year 2022 until the project is complete. Well, by the end of the year, the MTA plans to have new subway cars, and by next year, it's expected to have more than 200 new train cars. Overall, the goal is to have open gangway cars that are designed to be wide as well as spacious. You see a look of it there. MTA executive Steve Pollock stated in a board meeting that car makers were confident that they could build a spacious train car that could handle the unique layout of tracks and the train station. The open gangway cars are expected in the year 2023. The Bronx unveiled a new affordable housing community located on 450 Governor Place. The 68-unit development was constructed through a private partnership, including the State of New York and United Healthcare. Both the State of New York and United Healthcare were the largest investors in the $20.7 million project. Through a program provided by New York State's Office of Mental Health, it will also support 50 residents with mental disabilities, while 17 others and the apartment will be able to offer free earnings, and I should say be offered those earnings to 60% of the area who has a median income. Well, in other news, the Tribeca Film Festival featured many films, including Viola Franca, a film directed by Marta Savina, who captures the story of a courageous woman. Our BronxNet's Lissy Dominguez has a story.
The Tribeca Film Festival highlights many films from around the world, in particular one from Italy, a short film that dealt with the struggles of females during the mid-1960s. The film is based on the true story of Sicilian woman Franca Viola, the first woman to take a stand against the common practice of rehabilitating marriage, a law that enforced women in marriage with the individual who raped her. Director Marta Sabina narrates her story, depicting Franca's journey as she refuses to marry her offender.
She speaks very much to the idea of identity and sort of asserting your own self and coming into your own self as a woman. The character of Franca really embodied somebody who's able to change this and find a third way to just be who you are and not be sorry.
With a 15-minute runtime, the short film has already captured the attention of critics from around the world, even snagging nominations such as a David Di Donatello as Best Short and an Emmy as Best Drama for the College Television Awards. For Sabina, the short film was a story she could not wait to tell.
And I really didn't think I had the budget or the capabilities to sort of undertake a feature of the scale, but nonetheless, I just really was itching to tell the story.
Viola Franca's brave and powerful story was portrayed by actress Claudia Guzmano, while the gritty and raw role of the antagonist was showcased on the silver screen by Carlo Calderone. The film was shot in 6 days. Sabina worked diligently to do justice to a story she felt was important to tell. Joining her on this journey was producer Gregory Rossi.
The whole story is about a real social issue that was, very relevant in Italy. So she contacted me a few months before we actually started shooting, and the project was so awesome and beautiful, and Marta, such a passion for this project that she transmitted it immediately, and I was so happy to be part of it.
I'm so proud that such an Italian and Sicilian story is being very well received by audiences globally. And I think it speaks to the fact that it's a universal story, and what really makes me happy is that we're ready to receive these stories, so that means that change is happening.
In 15 minutes, Marta Sabina shows viewers a story of empowerment and determination, as well as giving life to a woman's story that demonstrates the fight and discovery of life, even in the darkest moments. This is Lissy Dominguez reporting for BronxNet.
And thank you, Lissy. We have to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Open right after this.
Hi, I'm David Lesh, legal correspondent to the morning show Open. If you have a legal question that you'd like me to answer, please send me an email at davidlesh@bronxnet.org, and I will address it on our Ask Your Lawyer segment.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
our neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Back here on Open, the Trump administration was recently blocked by federal judge William Orrick from enforcing threats to withhold funds from sanctuary cities. This comes as a response to a lawsuit filed by Santa Barbara County. Now, Judge Orrick found many discrepancies in the executive order, and he found it unconstitutional. Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn also may have broken the law by not disclosing his involvement with Russia while seeking security clearance to work in the White House. Here now to talk all about these latest topics, we welcome now attorney and political commentator J.C. Polanco.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
All
I love
well?
being here.
Good. Well, let's get right into it as we talk about the latest executive order that was blocked by the judge in Santa Barbara. Of course, a lot of people concerned about the whole sanctuary city. Your thoughts to the ruling?
Well, I have to tell you, the president has had a very steep learning curve these first 100 days. I know that his campaign style was very interesting, and we analyzed it a great deal here. It was more like I'm a Superman, and I'm going to get all these things done because this is what I say. But when he gets into office, he soon realizes that that's not exactly how it works. You have to deal with Congress, you have to deal with Congress members, you have to deal with caucuses, and yes, you have to deal with the federal courts. And the federal courts, time after time, continue to deal a blow to this president. Now, what's interesting is how this president's actions are causing a kind of revolution in political discussion across the country. I mean, you have children talking about politics and the role of government and the different levels of government. And one thing I want Bronxites to know is that this federal court system is very interesting. The federal court system is broken up into districts across the country. And the reason it's broken up that way is because different regions of the country have some cultural affinities and resemblances. For example, in the West Coast, you're going to have a much more liberal population than you would, for example, in Texas. So the federal district court out in California and in the West Coast will be very different from the South. Now, one thing is interesting. In any one of these federal district court judges, when they make their decisions, it affects the whole country. So President Trump promised sanctuary cities. President Trump promised that we were going to withhold funding of sanctuary cities. And those are cities that do not report undocumented immigrants to the federal government or work with ICE to get these people deported. Turns out that a judge in Hawaii, a judge in Washington State has the power to stop a president's action nationwide. Now, I think that's very interesting, and I think you're going to see the President Trump take to Twitter attacking these judges for making these decisions. How can a judge, Sessions said just last week, out in an island in the Pacific, change the decision of the sitting president of the United States? So Bronxites are going to see a lot of these decisions made by the president be stopped at the federal court level. Now, this is where it changes. Once a district court makes a decision, it has to go up to the Court of Appeals and then ultimately it will make it to the Supreme Court. I think President Trump has the votes on the Supreme Court to overturn these district decisions out in the West Coast.
How long would that take? Because a lot of people talk about that process. It would make its way to the Supreme Court. We know that there would be appeals, and the White House has not said exactly what they would appeal yet. How long could we be seeing before they make its way to the Supreme Court? Because some people say it might take months. This could take years.
Well, it could. It all depends on the judges and as to whether or not the Supreme Court justices grant cert to review these cases. Now, it could be something like a travel ban that is imminent, that affects people right away, and that affects the economy in such a way that the justices feel this needs to get a hearing right away. But normally it takes a while, and we've seen that with marriage equality. We've seen that with Obamacare. These things take a while before they make it to the Supreme Court of the United States. But I have to tell you this, I think that there are going to be many decisions that the president is going to make unilaterally in these executive orders that are going to be overturned at the district level. And that is simply because of the cultural differences that exist at these district court levels. And I think that's interesting. And I think Bronxites are getting a little flavor now of what they missed out on those social studies class they were sleeping through all these years.
Well, let's talk about the judge in this particular case. Judge William Orrick says he sided with Santa Clara County, saying that he does not find the policy unconstitutional, but he did find that the counties and cities that challenged the law demonstrated that they could face irreparable harm.
Yes, and that's because the funding is so important. See, New York City receives billions of dollars from the federal government. If that money were to be withheld, then we would end up experiencing incredible harm when it comes to our NYPD, when it comes to our human and social services. So we need that money. Now the question is, do cities, and I think Bronxites, I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, let's think about this for a second. Do cities have the right to ignore federal law? I think that's going to be a topic for the Supreme Court. And to add to that, can the federal government punish local governments for not complying with the law? And I think they can. All Bronxites have to do is look at the interstate highway system. If New York, for example, does not abide by a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit or a 65-mile-per-hour speed limit, as the federal government and the president wish, they can withhold funding to fix those roads. So the federal government does have power to force state and local governments to act in a certain manner, and that a lot of times is withholding funds. So I think this is going to be interesting.
You talk about New York State. Let's come a little bit closer to home and talk about what's going on here in New York. Obviously, the raise the age passed, and a lot of people in New York excited about the raise the age. Your perspective?
Well, you know, I'm a Republican, and I want Bronxites to just hear me out for a second. This raise the age idea seems very noble. Juveniles that commit crimes should not face adult times. That's the idea, and it seems very good on paper, but not as a bipartisan or as a nonpartisan analyst. From a different perspective, I think it is a problem for us to include violent criminals in that 16 and 17-year-old process of raise the age. Now, it already passed, and I know the governor's going to sign it, and it will be law. But I know for a fact that our communities are continuously suffering at the hands of people in our communities that create violent environments and violent atmospheres and beat other people up and jump other people and use their hands and may not use a gun. And these 16 and 17-year-olds that attack these moms and dads going to the bodega are going to find themselves doing juvenile time for what is an adult crime. If you read the law states that a violent crime includes crimes that involve weapons. Well, you can rape and sexually assault and attack a person not using a weapon. And if you're 16 and 17, these legislators, and I know a lot of them are my friends and they're watching and they're angry at me right now, and that's okay, but these legislators would want you to believe that a 16 and a 17-year-old that's committing these violent crimes is a juvenile. That's very different from the kid that goes into Macy's and shoplifts. To face adult time for that and to have that on his record for a long time, we can have that debate, and I would probably argue that that's a minor crime. But when we're talking about violent crimes, when we're talking about sexual assaults, when we're talking about hurting other people, and you're going to tell me that a 17-year-old is a child, I think that's absurd. But it passed, and it goes to show you one thing for Bronxites to get a load of this. It goes to show you the power of Jeff Klein and the IDC. This is something that was important to them, and this is something that passed New York State and became law because of the IDC. The Senate Republicans had to acquiesce to this because of the power of the IDC. And I think it's important to recognize that in the Bronx, we have the Speaker of the Assembly, and we also have the head of the IDC, which puts us as Bronxites in a very powerful position. So for those people that are attacking the IDC all the time and that are liberals, this is an example of how Raise the Age passes because of their support.
So even with Raise the Age passing right now, you say, listen, it still deserves another look.
I think if we're going to include violent crimes and simply include violent crimes that involve weapons, I think that's a mistake.
But then you're talking about the fact also that New York is probably one of those two states that still is not in that category. We now are moving to where most of the country is.
Well, I still think it's a mistake. And I understand that different states have different laws, and that's fine. But I think that if you're a 17-year-old and you attack someone in our community, I think that you are an adult. You've committed an adult crime. And let me tell you why. Penny Brown in 2001 was a mom of two that was attacked and raped while jogging and killed by a 15-year-old. This 15-year-old went to juvenile detention and played chess and played PlayStation, the first edition, and got to see juvenile time. For the rape and murder of a mom, I think this is an adult crime. I think it's heinous, and I think he should have faced adult time. So when I look at 16 and 17-year-olds, I'm saying to myself, are you really telling me that we're going to allow these gang members in our community to just attack and create a violent atmosphere and hurt our people and tell me that a 17-year-old doesn't know what he's doing because he's some sort of baby? I don't think so. But you know what? It shows you the power of the Bronx elected officials. They got this done. I disagree with them on this. I agree with them on a bunch of other things. But the Bronx is in a good place. If we want to drive an agenda, I think this is where you want to be these days.
Where you cut your teeth. JC Blanco, as always, good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Catch you next week. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open. Stay with us. We'll come right back right after this.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
it's always worth it.
Whoa, faster!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Hey, look, it's those guys.
Let's do those pearly whites, man. Yeah. Boys, check it out. Stand up, do my terrorists, go compare us.
Ooh, cute.
Are you good to drive?
I'm fine. Hey girl, what's up? What's the name? What's good? What's up?
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Sir, go and step out of the vehicle for me.
Yes, sir. See ya, buddy. Today, Sean's got a hearing. We'll see how it goes. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
According to the CDC, Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death among all adults and 5th leading death for those that are 65 years and older. An estimated 51 million people are affected with the irreversible brain disease. Alzheimer's has a big impact on people's lives, and especially those who are caregivers. Here now to tell us more about the Alzheimer's Caregiver Conference, we welcome now the President and CEO of RAIN Total Care Incorporated, Dr. Anderson Torres, and Program Directors Ana Rodriguez and Julio D. Gonzalez. We welcome you all to the show, and thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
Good to have you. Dr. Anderson, let's talk first and foremost as we talk about Alzheimer's, a big problem across the nation. Talk to us about the effect that it's having in the Bronx and the work that you guys are doing.
Sure. Just to recap, RAIN is a 53-year-old not-for-profit organization serving primarily the Bronx, individuals that are seniors and people with disabilities. We've been seeing an increase of Alzheimer's diagnosed clients and patients on service, which is pretty sad. So when you look at the risk factors for the disease, the African American community and the Latino community are at twice or 1.5% higher than whites with the diagnosis. So when you look at hypertension, when you look at cardiac disease, diabetes, and obesity, those factors put the individual at a higher risk for getting the disease. And with Alzheimer's, you have an impairment in memory and overall functioning. I also want to point out that the youngest case in the United States diagnosed with the disease was a 29-year-old male.
Wow.
So, you know, it's not just an older person's disease, but as the individual gets older, you have all these risk factors that play a role in the disease process.
And so, Dr. Gonzalez, a conference is happening here. Going to give us the opportunity to really address some of these things?
Yes, the conference is in Lincoln Hospital. Next Tuesday, May 2nd, we start the registration at 8:30 to all day we're there for the conference.
And so when people come to take part in this conference, what can they expect to have take place?
They will be able to get resources and tools on how to help the caregiver with their turmoil and their burden. We're going to be able to show more or less and educate people about the process of Alzheimer. And individuals will also be able to have information about the support groups that we hold for the caregivers.
Because when you talk about Alzheimer's, the patient is definitely the primary, but there's a lot of weight and there's a lot of burden that really falls on the lives of those who are caregivers.
You know, it's interesting. When you look at the disease, every 66 seconds, someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's or related dementia in the United States. And that's a big number. I've been a caregiver. I've had Alzheimer's personally in my family, and I see the impact that it has on the caregiver. You're seeing more and more caregiver stress, caregiver burnout. You hear a lot of those conditions and increased anxiety and depression. This conference involves several partners. So it's hosted by Lincoln Hospital, and we have several panelists from, Hunter School of Social Work to Montefiore Hospital, providing education on the disease, because there are a lot of caregivers that still do not understand what are the signs and the symptoms to be able to manage accordingly, and the proper referral and diagnoses. A lot of people say, oh, that's just, an older person's disease, or that's just a symptom related to this, but it needs formalized testing and assessment. So we hope to educate the community at that conference and beyond. And this is all made possible because of a grant that RAIN received through the New York State Department of Health, looking at underserved communities and making an impact as it relates to Alzheimer's and related dementias.
As people from the Bronx come and those across the city have an opportunity to come and share, what is the hope that you want people to take away at the end of this conference?
Our expectation is that people receiving the support and help our community to handle for this situation in our family. Also, I am the caregiver too. My wife uncle have Alzheimer, and we are a caregiver, and for us it's very stressful. I want these tools, I hopefully have this tool to deal for this situation. And now we understand our community need to deal about this the disease to affect our family, our community, and also in the Bronx specific too.
And you're calling on people to come out, huh?
I am calling on people to come out. The conference is May 2nd at Lincoln Hospital. We start registration at 8:30. We'll be there till 2:30, and at 1 o'clock we break out for different groups and workshops. And I think it's an opportunity for an educational awareness, and it's free, so we hope to see you all, and we want to let all those caregivers know that you are not alone.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
And what we're doing different as well is that we are actually doing a whole intergenerational approach to this conference. We've already partnered with Millennium High School here in the Bronx. They're sending 60 of their youth. And when I went to their classroom and I talked about the disease, I had a 15-year-old who talked about her 49-year-old aunt with Alzheimer's and the impact that it had on her. In the conference, we're going to start the conference actually with testimonials. So I'm hoping to have someone from the youth range, middle age, and older adult. We changed the name of the conference to A Promise Made because of an interview that I had with a fellow who's 73 years old. His wife is 10 years older, and at one point she started seeing the differences in her cognitive functioning. And as she saw the deterioration, she told him, you know what, you're younger, you can go out and leave me and start another life. And he says, I made a promise to you until the very end. And she has full-blown, severe stage Alzheimer's at this point, and he's sticking by her. He's one of the individuals that's going to come out and provide a testimonial after 50 years of marriage.
And it's got to be special for you guys, as you said, because both of you, in addition to doing this, you also have been caregivers.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. We have a support group also. We have the program, I have a support group for the caregivers too. And it's funded by the New York State Department of Health. And this program is to help our community. Also, we have the support group in English, Spanish, and also telephonic support group.
So that's important because, going back years prior when we were going through this journey, along with the Latino Alzheimer's Coalition of New York, founded over 20 years ago, there weren't all these resources available, and it was just going through day by day and trying to make sense of something that did not make sense. So the fact that we are in a position to be able to outreach, educate, advocate, and link up individuals to needed services, that's a tremendous impact. We've been creative enough because there are some people that literally cannot leave their home because they're the only caregiver.
Right.
And so we have now executed the telechat program. And there are some caregivers that will go to the bathroom, call in. We do guided imagery, stress management, and information regarding the disease, and that makes an impact. That's, in a way, a link to reality in a very difficult situation.
Yeah, giving people the resources to have the help, you know, during a time like this, because I think you said it most, that sometimes people feel like they're all alone.
Yes.
And when you feel like you're all alone, you know, obviously you go and you sink into your feelings as well as some other things. And for the caregivers to have that opportunity to have an open line to do that. So once again, let's get the information before we wrap out one more time. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. The conference is Tuesday, May 2nd at Lincoln Hospital. It is we start registration at 8:30 a.m. and we will be there until 2:30 p.m. We invite you all, and again, we say to all those caregivers and all those individuals who are looking to learn more about this disease to please come and join us. You are not alone.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Anna,
much.
Julio, Dr. Torres, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And of course, hopefully we'll bring you back and you can share a little bit about how the conference worked.
Yes, and you're okay as long as you remember you forgot.
That's that's important to know. All righty. Listen, stay tuned. We got more Open coming up right after this. We'll be right back.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Barry, time is running out. According to my calculations, 1 in 5 kids in America struggles with hunger. How can so many children face hunger when there's more than enough food to feed them all?
Babadoo.
You're right, Barry. We can help solve hunger by teaming up with Feeding America to get food to hungry kids in communities across the country.
Help Flint and the Feeding America network of food banks get food to the people who need it in your community. Find your local Feeding America food bank at feedingamerica.org/hunger.
Together, we're Feeding America.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
And welcome back. As part of the New York State budget, Governor Andrew Cuomo announced the Excelsior Scholarship that provides tuition and free college to middle-class families. Now, although the words free and tuition have a nice ring to it, many people don't know the full details about the scholarship and if it'll really help middle-class students. Joining us now to talk more about this topic, we welcome now University State Senate Vice Chair for Fiscal, Jonah Kurluku, and University State Senate Legislative Director Donovan Borington. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is particularly good for me because my son is going to a state college next year, so you're going to give me all the information I need to know as well as all of our viewers and help us out. But honestly, a good program by the governor, I guess, in terms of allowing free state tuition for students. So walk us down and give us a little bit, yes, no, maybe so.
So we thank Cuomo for starting this conversation about free higher education, which is something that we need across the country. However, it's not free for New York. It's it says it in the name, Excelsior Scholarship. And in his budget, he did include tuition hikes for $200, but also pushed for this tuition free for the state, which doesn't make sense how you have tuition hikes and tuition free in the same sentence. So it's not free. How it works is that you're going to have Pell Grants cover tuition and then TAP, and then this Excelsior Scholarship is going to cover the rest of the bill. And it really doesn't do much for low-income students, which need this the most, because tuition is increasing, and it increased before. Our university students said it had a major success last year in getting tuition freeze, but tuition hikes are planned for the next 4 years for $200. And so again, tuition is increasing, but TAP is not catching up to these hikes, and so there's a gap. And so when it does cover tuition, there is no money left over for students so that they can pay for books, they can pay for transportation, for food. A lot of our students suffer food insecurities and shelter insecurities, and so these are issues they have to deal with, and there isn't money left over, so it's not free.
Let me talk to Don about how does a person actually qualify for this scholarship?
Well, it's my understanding that, you know, if you qualify for Pell and TAP, and once it covers the tuition, the Excelsior Scholarship will cover the remainder. And so currently, right now, if you're making your family makes below $80,000, you're eligible for TAP and Pell, and Excelsior will cover the difference. At the City University of New York, CUNY, the tuition really doesn't exceed the maximum TAP and Pell award. However, at State University of New York, SUNY, some of their colleges, the tuition does exceed the annual Pell and TAP award. So Excelsior really covers a lot of the bulk of that tuition for those students. But particularly at CUNY, like my colleague mentioned, that additional funding that is needed, you know, for book money, for transportation, for the cost of living. Whereas if you attend the State University of New York, you have dorming, you have access to housing, and there's affordable living. But within the city, we know the cost of living is very high. So students that attend CUNY, they have these out-of-pocket expenses that the financial aid just does not cover. And so what you find is that most of our students, they're working students. So unfortunately, they can't afford to attend full-time to meet the Excelsior eligibility requirement. And that's one of the major challenges that we see, that as our students are going to be able to continue to remain full-time. What we do like is that in the initial proposal, the governor had requested that you take 15 credits a semester, but then we see that the legislature and the governor came to an agreement where you can take 30 credits over a full year, which means that the Excelsior is going to cover summertime and wintertime. And this is something we've been challenging the legislature to do over the past few years. We've been calling for TAP reform. And like my colleague said, we appreciate the advancement of the conversation.
Right.
We like that higher ed is finally at the forefront, because we've been, you know, in the back fighting for this, and now it's a national conversation. We just want to see some major changes so that we're making the right investments.
So for somebody who qualifies, there's also some additional requirements to come to that as well. So you can qualify for the scholarship, you can get a scholarship, and after you get a scholarship, that's still not it.
Yeah, you have to maintain your GPA to make sure that you're not failing any of your classes, and if you do, then you don't qualify for the program anymore, so you can't apply again.
Yeah, and I think one of the new components of the program is that for every year you receive it, you have to work within the state. That was something that came out of the budget negotiations. And while I do understand, you know, the state's making the investment into our students, and the state wants to get that return on investment by making sure you're staying and working here within the state, we think that's probably going to be a challenge for our university to ensure that there are opportunities. Currently, you know, you can graduate with a degree, but there's no guarantee that the company or the market is going to hire you. And if one of our students gets an opportunity across the state, or, you know, within another state across the country, they have to stay within the state, or that scholarship is going to turn to a loan. So right now, one of the things that we're going to work on is working with our university to make sure that our career services is ready and working with the private sector and the public sector to secure our students some job opportunities, so that way the scholarship isn't turned into a loan, because that's what we fear.
And talking about really educating students and making students aware, you guys have done a good job of letting students know. What's the feedback that you've gotten so far?
Well, people like it because they're sold on the free tuition part, but we're really
free, right?
The word free,
Right.
yeah. So I mean, in social media, you see a lot of memes on it, and how New York is the first to do this. And it's awesome that they're starting this conversation. but it's not free, and so we have to educate people that are going to apply for this, that they understand the consequences and the benefits.
Any talk about talking to legislators, still keeping that push going, even though it's happened so far, still to get the tweaks and the reforms that you'd like to see?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we're upstate in Albany every other week trying to talk to legislatures about the different things that we need. And so the biggest push is, you know, like TAP reform, because that additional aid for MetroCar, MTA is going up constantly. We want to work on, again, this employment piece. People are going to need jobs. So we're trying to figure out how we can create some public-private partnerships. In 2013, we worked with the City Council to create what's called the City Council Merit Scholarship. And that's awarded to any New York City high school student who graduates from New York City High School and comes to CUNY. They're awarded $800 a year, $400 a semester, as long as they maintain a B average. And we've been able to get about $19 million a year in restoration funding from the City Council. And that's been great to partner with the City Council and the Committee on Higher Education, Councilmember Barron. That was really something like we worked for, where it didn't kind of tie our students with that working component, but it can cover transportation, food. And so this is the type of funding that we want to continue to provide our students, other avenues, because our students are parents. They're taking care of their parents or their kids. They're working students. So we have to change the model of what a traditional student is, because CUNY serves all type of students, students with disabilities, students from different backgrounds. And so we understand what our community consists of.
Jonah, Donovan, that's about the time we have for this particular segment, but of course we'll continue to follow this. Got to bring you back as we get closer to the school year and really hear more about what's going on. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. All right. Look, taking a quick break here on Open. We'll return. We'll have more show coming up right after this.
Every Monday night at 9, we talk to the borough's movers and shakers about the latest in Bronx politics, education, healthcare, arts and culture, and literally any and everything that's important to the people of the Bronx. There's a reason why Bronxites have been turning to Bronx Talk for more than 20 years, because Bronx Talk is about you and me, the people of the Bronx. So we'll see you Monday night at 9.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Well, through their many programs and services, Children's Aid Society provides children along with families the support they need to help children succeed. Here now to share a little bit more about the organization and some upcoming events, please welcome now the Director of Collective Impact, Abe Fernandez, and he joins us here. Good to have you again.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's all right. It's good to have you. So you guys are really staying on top of things, really servicing kids, and we talk about, just in the last segment about kids in college, but
Absolutely.
Your work is vastly, a little similar.
Absolutely. So we've now been doing work in New York City since 1853. So 164 years of trying to understand what kids need. Kids and families really changing with the times, changing with where the need is, and really trying to be on top of those supports. We believe strongly that all kids have limitless potential. And so we think it's really important to provide a solid foundation of support for children and families from birth all the way through college and career. So we do that through a number of programs, including early childhood programs. We have a number of community schools, which are very comprehensive public schools that meet the needs of kids and families. We have community centers, and at both of those we provide after school and summer programs. Really anything that kids need, we try to provide. We have an entire medical department, and so we also provide community care in terms of health care, but also school-based health. We're also really proud of our child welfare work, which is really how we got started many, many years ago.
Yeah, and the work you guys continue to do is phenomenal. When you talk about next month is a very important month. It's Foster Care Month. And,
That's right.
What's going on here?
So, I think it's a really
National
important.
Foster Care Month, I should say.
Absolutely, and it's really important that we recognize the important work that's happening all over the country when it comes to foster care, but certainly here in New York City. Children's Aid, we probably support somewhere between 500 and 600 different children in foster care. We're really proud of that work. It is very, very challenging work, but the goal is to really help stabilize families and to try to make sure kids come back to a safe, supportive environment. There are times when that doesn't really work out, and so the other part of the work that's really important is to find really safe, supportive, adoptive homes for those children. So we were really pleased that last year we found 63 of those settings for kids, and I think it's a really important part of what we do as a city.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk about that, there'll be, of course, a lot of programs and awareness that's going on as well.
Right. So every time we really want to highlight stories of foster families, and just the lengths that families are going to make sure children are being taken care of well. And so we're going to be featuring a number of those stories on social media next month. We also always do a big party and a big celebration to thank those families and to really sort of help kids understand that there is a lot of support out there for them.
Mm-hmm. Here in New York State, we've got a lot of big problems, and poverty is a big one. And
Yes.
there's an Empire State Poverty Reduction Initiative that's going on. And
Yeah.
Give us a little info on that.
So yeah, we're really excited about this as well. The governor last year announced in his state of the state the expansion of some work that started in Rochester, New York, and has now gone to 15 new additional communities, including the Bronx, which we're really excited about. So we have an opportunity to get an investment of somewhere in the ballpark of $2.75 million to think about how we can address the drivers of poverty in the Bronx. So what's really exciting about how this particular project is unfolding is that instead of having a preconceived notion from the state about what's going to happen, or even the borough president who ended up selecting Children's Aid to help coordinate this effort, the borough president himself has said, I have no preconceived notions. There's a real belief that the answers are in the community. And so we are next weekend, Friday and Saturday, we're holding a planning institute where we're inviting anyone who lives in, who loves the Bronx, who knows the Bronx, who can help us really understand what's the story behind the numbers. We all know that the numbers aren't great. We know we have high rates of poverty. We know we have many issues we want to sort of work through. We want to talk directly to people who work in this borough, people who live in this borough, folks who are living in poverty themselves, to really understand what's the story behind that, and maybe more importantly, what do we do about that? What seems to have worked? What are mistakes we don't want to repeat? And how might we take this unprecedented investment and do something new and creative that really will have a big impact?
And a lot of people, you're definitely looking to push the streets and get people's voice. I know it's the We Need Your Voice event.
That's right. So we're hoping that either day, Friday, May 5 or Saturday, May 6, it's going to be at Metropolitan College of New York. We start at 9 o'clock on Friday, 10 o'clock on Saturday, give people a chance to sort of get some rest. But it's going to be an all-day affair. And we already have a really good response. We'd love to get more and more residents of the Bronx, including young people, right? So it's not just around adults talking about this. We know that this is an issue that affects families and young children as well. And so if we can get the voice of youth there, that's really important as well.
It's very important. And so if people want more information, what do they do?
So if you go, I hope it's on the lower third here.
Yeah,
So if you go to children'saidsociety.org/ESPRI-RSVP, it's a little complicated, but it's the Empire State Poverty Reduction Initiative, RSVP.
Yeah, seeing it down at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, terrific.
Yep.
So if you go there, you can sign up, and we would love to have you.
What do you find to be the biggest challenge right now in terms of servicing young people today? Because they require so many different services, and as I was sharing with some people a little while ago, the needs to take care of young people today are a whole lot different than before.
Yeah, I think what's really, for us, what we keep coming back to is that there are many needs. And the question becomes, how do we ensure that all of the partners that are helping young people are doing it in a very sort of collaborative, collective way? So it's in addition to continuing to provide those individual programs and services, we want to make sure there's enough connective tissue so that if a child comes to one person with a need, that service provider also knows where else to go for other things that child might present with. So I think having that sort of collaborative feel is what we need in the Bronx.
Abe Fernandez, Director of Collective Impact for Children's Aid Society. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
to share with us. Best wishes. I know you got a busy schedule up ahead.
We do.
And, hopefully you'll get a lot of public participation.
Many thanks for your support.
All righty. Abe Fernandez. Listen, stay tuned. We got more open. We'll be right back in a few.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
it's always worth it.
Whoa, faster!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Well, the 4th annual Bronx Book Fair is right around the corner, and this year's theme is Building the Bronx Literary Culture, which is set to bring the community together. Joining us now to tell us more about the event, we welcome now the Bronx Center librarian, Jean Hara-Prasad, and the editor of the Freedom Literary Project, Ron Kavanaugh. I did well, didn't I, Jean?
You did.
I'm doing awesome. That's what I like. Good to have you guys.
Same here. Okay.
Listen, when we talk about literacy, obviously a lot of people, particularly nationwide, it's a big struggle for kids to be able to read and write. But, you know, here in the borough of the Bronx, of course, we have our own challenges, but you guys are tackling this head on.
Yeah, so one of the things we recognize, just what you said, that people aren't reading as much. About 5 years, it's actually the 5th anniversary now, and Americo Cassiano, a local poet, decided he wanted to start a book fair. He invited me to join. He went to the public library, and we just kind of recognized that there's something going on in the Bronx that really needs to be addressed. So we started the book fair.
And so this book fair is going to encompass a lot of things.
Right. So the book fair will be held on May 6th. That's Saturday, May 6th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and it will be at the Bronx Library Center. So for the past 4 years, and this is the 5th year, it will be held at the Bronx Library Center. Now, at the New York Public Library, we are really working to raise literacy levels in the Bronx. This is why we are so thrilled to host the Bronx Book Fair every year. At the library, we are also working to raise the literacy level, not just on one angle. We are focusing on early childhood literacy, young adult literacy, every angle we are trying to tackle it to raise the literacy levels in the Bronx.
And the great thing about the program is we have programs, even though the library is committed to it, so is the book fair separately. So we are going to have programs all day to address like all the different age groups. So we'll have programs for families, programs for teenagers, programs for would-be writers. We have like a speed coaching session where you sign up. You have to sign up through our website, BronxBookFair.com. And we'll have professionals there to give you advice on your writing and how you're progressing as a poet or a novelist, so that's very important. We'll have readings. The keynote speaker of the day is Kevin Young. Kevin Young was recently appointed director of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. He is also the poetry editor at the New Yorker. He's also a friend, so that helped him get the job, I guess. But, so we have just like a lot of programs all day, readings, panels, library panels, just to address all of these different issues around books and reading.
I got a couple of the activities that are taking place here, and I also want to share, and you know, some of our people might be able to find out. But if you're a publisher and you have the need, you think you want to publish a book or something like that, there is Publishing and Beyond.
Yeah, right. So yes, we're going to have a workshop. So if you wrote a book and you don't know how to get it out there, how to publish it, we have Eric Johnson from the Black Bear Press right here in the Bronx, who will be conducting a workshop telling you how to get your work published. We're also going to have another panel. People are into zines these days. How to publish your own zine and get it out there.
And like we said, there'll also be workshops. We're having a specific workshop just for women writers so that they can kind of be in a safe space and again, develop their craft. We're having poetry for young people. Again, we're not segmenting them out just to kind of separate them from the kind of larger book fair, but we want to create these safe spaces. All too often, literacy is really about not engaging in a public way with books and readings. You know, your friends don't read, so you might feel like, oh, I don't want to read, you know, just to kind of be that kind of fake cool and hip. But what we're trying, this is the space for you. If you're a reader, if you're a writer, please come to the Bronx Book Fair. There's going to be something for you. There are actually vendors all day. You know, people, even if they don't want to do the panels, even if they're not writers, don't want to do a workshop, there are vendors selling books all throughout the day, you know, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. So most people go to book fairs just to buy books, and we'll have plenty of books for sale also.
Right. The important thing, this book fair is free, and all the activities throughout the day is free, and we're going to have something for every age level. So I want to talk a little bit about children. We're going to have children programming. So we're going to have bilingual story time, which will include music and movement. We're going to have a family literacy workshop where we work with parents to teach them how to develop literacy skills in your kids from a very young age. And we're also going to have Mother's Day card making. And there will be free book giveaways.
So that's a lot of activity.
And there's music.
And there's music.
And there's music. On top of everything else, there's music. Jackie Flowers Quartet will be performing near the end of the day. So.
Yeah.
And then I know one thing we didn't talk about here is the funding literary artists and literary institutions, because that's something that's major. A lot of people are trying to get funding, and with shrinking budgets, the need for resources are just like out there.
Absolutely. You know, we love the library, but like in the Bronx, once you kind of leave the library, there aren't many other institutions.
Right.
But there are people who want to create institutions, but they just don't know how. They don't know how to recognize the funding, find the funding, and this workshop will be specific to that. You know, so that you know to go to Poets and Writers, or you know to go to the Foundation Center because you want more funds to start your own program, but also for writers who want money just to do their own workshops. So it could be institutions, but it could also be individuals.
Ms. Jean, once again, it's great that the library is partnering with us too.
Yes, and you know, one of the things we want to encourage.
We love the library.
We love the library.
One of the things I do want to encourage people who are coming to the book fair at any time, get a library card. It is free. With this library card, you have access to over 8 million books and DVDs for free.
Yeah, it is.
You also have access to over 300,000 ebooks. So if you have your smartphone or your iPad or your tablet, feel free.
Go ahead and sign up. Jean, Ron, thank you so much for coming.
You.
We hope the event is a great success. Once again, Saturday, May the 6th, you saw the date and the time at the bottom, or actually on the full page in the bottom of the screen. Please get in touch and be a part of this very special event. Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing with us, and best wishes and best success on the event.
Thank you.
All righty, listen, everybody, we've just about come to the end of the show today. We want to thank our guests for joining us, but most of all, I want to thank you for tuning in and watching us. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67, Verizon, Fios Channel 33, or anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. I am Darren Jaime, and of course, it's been a pleasure coming to your homes. We encourage you to stay safe, keep this channel wide open, and may God continue to bless you. Take care now.